Stories are immensely powerful. They shape the way we see the world and how we act in it. Stories create meaning to the individual moments of our lives. Stories such as how our parents and grandparents overcame odds and challenges. The stories of the formative events of our youth, how we first met those that are friends and that we love. Stories enhance and order the fractured moments of our lives and can create a pattern of beautiful meaning. Stories grip us. We know their personal power. Sometimes we enter into a story that's larger than ourselves. And I'd like to talk to you today about such a story. It's a story of gratitude. And it's my story, and it's yours as well, if you choose to see yourself within it. My own story began in a burgeoning, expanding Toronto in the 1990s. My life was amazing by any account. I had plenty, I had community, I had love, all of those things. And not surprisingly, as an adolescent, I didn't really pay attention to the value of those things. I didn't give much thought to them. But what was it that I truly had in Toronto? What was it that I was ignoring? Well, how about free health care? Something as simple as clean and plentiful water, the thriving cultural institutions, the health, the education, the infrastructure, having energy, even something as simple as not having to worry about my house being blown up. Well, I didn't think about any of that. I didn't consider it for one moment. All of these things that were essential to my life, to my being, didn't think about them at all. Not once. And certainly had no gratitude. No. Adolescents have other things to concern them. And not surprisingly, we all have our own tribulations. I was bullied. I had a learning disability. I wasn't that popular. All common experiences. And so, just like most adolescents, I was unhappy. And I tried to search around for something that I could be happy in or about. And also, like many adolescents, I found solace in stories. For me, it was historical fiction, the fall of the Roman Empire and the succeeding Dark Ages. And yes, just in case you're wondering, I do think about the Roman Empire every day. But I was stricken by the contrast between the prosperity, the peace, the art, the learning of ancient Rome, and then the disastrous want, chaos, and loss of the Dark Ages. The loss of the Library of Alexandria, the lost art, the destruction of families and lives, the loss of peace. All of these things affected me greatly. I had this great sense of the loss, and then also of the forgotten. I started reading tremendously about it, the histories, the letters of those who wrote from the height of ancient civilization. And then I read various accounts of the destruction of all that they had built, all that they cared for so much. It made me feel like I had a personal stake in those stories. And even when I was reading some of the accounts of the destruction, I felt like I was watching news bulletins about the destruction of something that I loved. This is all adolescent fancy, of course, but I felt it keenly. As I went through high school, I learned the nuts and bolts about the modern world. I slowly began to comprehend of the enormous work the hard uphill battle to reclaim some of what was lost, and the new institutions and things that were created to enhance the arts and sciences to bring us to the beginning of the 20th century. It took so much work. I hadn't thought about that until I really got through high school and looked at it closely in front of my face. So much work, so much effort. And what does that really mean? It means lives. It means lives dedicated to that work. And stories of those lives, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of stories of striving, of discovery, of ideas. And all of these stories woven into a single epic story. And that is the story of our current moment. I remember walking home from high school one day, beautiful spring day, absolutely fabulous. Everything was right, birds were chirping, all of that. And I looked up into the sky and saw this magnificent purple-hued sunset, just inexplicable. And I froze, just in my tracks. It was like a bolt of lightning, and I suddenly realized how unbelievably rare such an experience was. The ability to enjoy peace and security in Toronto, Canada, that was not natural. It didn't happen by accident. It took so much work. And I realized that I was the recipient of a chain of events, a chain of effort from generations past to create the world we have today. Not only that, but I realized that I could be a part of that chain, a page in the story of our current moment of human flourishing. This was a very vague idea at the time. I didn't know what it meant or what I could do with it, but I stumbled into this idea of the fact that I had been born great and that I could be part of the greatness that I had found. Shakespeare wrote, "Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." Well, we here in Canada, in the 21st century, have a bit of an odd problem, don't we? We've been born great, and we don't often recognize it. Not often enough. It's a strange problem, but it's one that we have to confront, because I tell you this, every individual for the past thousands of years would give anything to be here today in your shoes right now. Well, look around. Look at the world that you find yourself in. Queens and pharaohs could not command the kind of information and entertainment you have nonchalantly in your pocket. The kind of education, health, welfare, security, all of these things that we take for granted place you above 99.99% of humans who have ever lived, the history of the world. That makes us the 0.01% of history. You're all the 0.01% of history. Now, to recognize this doesn't discount our current challenges, the many injustices and tragedies we have in our society today. It doesn't. But our point of view is necessarily informed by our experiences, what we know, and that of those in living memory. Now, for most of us, that experience means modern liberal democracy. And what does that imply? Well, things like near universal literacy, high rates of food and being able to access food whenever you can, low infant mortality rates, an expectation of security, and a world where poverty needs to be explained. That in particular, just think about that. Poverty needs to be explained for us today. When Adam Smith wrote his Wealth of Nations in 1776, it was wealth he was explaining. Poverty was just the expected floor that everybody experienced, the common condition. So how do we get from there to here? Through hard work, problem solving, institutions. 200 years ago, the world population, 80% of it was in abject poverty. 80% of the global population 200 years ago lived in abject poverty. Do you know what that number is today? It's about 9%. 9% of our global population lives in abject poverty. Still terrible, no doubt, but better than it's ever been in the past. I think that we can improve, add more meaning to our lives by seeing them as part of this greater effort, the effort of institutions to improve the lot of everyone in this room. We have been born great. And what have we been born into? Our democracies, our institutions, all of the pieces of the rules-based international order built out of so much effort over the past 70, 80 years, and from the learning of the suffering of the 2 world wars. It's not insignificant. But the progress that we've had is not inevitable. It's something that requires work. It requires you to be part of it, to be part of our institutions. And these institutions and our systems are not perfect, not by any means. They're flawed, like democracy. And democracy, after all, is the worst form of government, except for all the others. The same could be said of our own society, our own government, and the rules-based international order itself. It's not perfect, but it's the best we've ever come up with. This is a rare story, and it's yours. Your story is of the flourishing of this current moment and all of the work that it's taken to get us here. So, make it your own. Step into it. Step up. Take ownership. Your story is greater than you can imagine. And I'd like to suggest that you see your own greatness, the greatness of our society and your role within it. It is a story of power and purpose through gratitude. It is my story, and it is yours as well. Thank you.